Run now, show yourself!
Fearless. Faithful. Determined. Swift. They're man's best friend, and much more. They've followed us into battle and been rocketed into space. They've served at the side of nearly every president. They're genetically hardwired to help us tackle our toughest jobs. And when nature meets nurture, they can perform superhuman feats.
I think the best way to think of my sled dogs is a well-trained team of Navy SEALs.
Now, it's time to track down the amazing story of dogs on Modern Marvels.
Sit, attaboy.
Go!
Lie down. Good.
We call them our best friends. But the things we don't know about them would fill a book.
Come on, buddy, hurry!
They're as smart as a 3-year-old child
Down.
and understand up to 200 words.
High five.
Speak. Good boy.
They're either righties or lefties, favoring one paw over the other, just like left-handed or right-handed people. They can make 100 different facial expressions, most of them with their ears. But on a deeper level, we know the most important thing there is to know about dogs. We're made for each other.
They're not a species apart. They are so much closer to who we are and what we are than I would have ever imagined. The research is showing that they mimic us, that they try to figure out what we need. They may have helped us become who we are.
The human-canine bond is so strong that more than 1 million dogs around the world are named as beneficiaries in people's wills.
Go, Riley!
There are 77 million dogs in the United States, more than in any other country, and more than the human population of California, Texas, and Illinois combined.
Love.
We like to think of ourselves as dog superiors. But in many ways, they're light years ahead of us. Dogs are a marvel of anatomical engineering. Case in point, speed. Some breeds, like the Greyhound, can hit a top speed of 45 miles per hour.
The Saluki of Arabia, or its relative, the Afghan hound, can run at speeds of over 40 miles an hour, which, if you think about it, will let them overtake an Arabian horse.
The key anatomical trait that makes it possible? Fast twitch muscles connected to shoulder blades that only attach loosely to the rest of the skeleton. This allows for greater flexibility, longer strides, and higher top speeds. A dog's hearing is just as extraordinary. It's 10 times more acute than a human's, able to locate the source of a sound in 1/1600th of a second. A dog owes it all to his incredibly mobile ears. Each has 18 distinct muscles, twice that of humans, which enable dogs to tilt, rotate, raise, or lower them to maximize reception. But the dog's greatest superpower is its sense of smell. It's a staggering 100,000 times more sensitive than our own.
The sense of smell sets dogs apart from a lot of different other animals. For instance, the dogs have about 220 million scent receptors, where with people it's about 5 million.
A dog's sense of smell is thousands of times better than a human. Think of it like this. If a dog's driving down the road with his head out the window, what he's really doing is seeing the world with his nose.
Today, this wonder of the natural world comes in more than 300 different breeds. They can be massive or miniature, short-haired or long-haired, stocky or streamlined. But don't let the variety fool you. The DNA of these strikingly different breeds is virtually identical.
Regardless of the breed, dogs share over 99% of the same genetic material, and so that explains why they have a lot of these common traits.
It's no mystery why today's 400 million dogs and 300 breeds are so genetically similar. Every canine on the planet can trace its roots to one ancient ancestor. The wolf.
No matter what the difference in their appearance is, the dogs and gray wolves actually share an incredible amount of genetic material. In fact, the difference is less than about 0.2%. And so that's why we see a lot of similarities.
The behavioral similarities between dogs and wolves are the prime focus of study at the California Wolf Center in Julian, California. This 50-acre facility is home to 6 different packs of gray and Mexican wolves. And it allows researchers like Aaron Hunt to step back in time 40,000 years and study the modern dog's ancestral prototype in action.
Wolves and dogs are extremely closely related, so much of the behaviors that you will see here with our wild wolf pack are identical to the behaviors that you'll see in your dogs at home.
And if you've ever wondered why your dog loves your company, or especially that of another dog, thank the wolf. To survive, wolves travel in packs. Only by attacking as a group can they bring down prey larger than themselves. This social instinct is as strong in dogs now as it was in wolves eons ago.
They're both very social animals. And a dog's pack consists of any animals that would be in the house with it and the people. And so they need that social structure to keep them happy.
And the cardinal rule of any wolf pack is that there can only be one pack leader. Wolves form a pecking order with the top dog in charge. It's their way of ensuring their safety and maximizing the efficiency of the hunt. You can see this ancient instinct in action when your dog encounters another in the park. One dog generally becomes submissive to the other, but conflict can erupt when one dog chooses to question that hierarchy. The alpha dog will usually express his displeasure and reassert his dominance by growling. Growling isn't the only form of communication dogs have inherited from wolves.
Wolves howl for long-distance communication, to locate pack members that have been separated, to reaffirm social bonds and bring their pack closer together, and they'll also howl to defend their territory against other wolf packs.
The wolf's superhuman hearing aids in their long-distance communication.
They can hear each other from over 9 miles away in open areas. And if you think of our dogs at home, they'll often howl or bark at each other between houses. That's one of the great ways that dogs communicate, and that came from wolves.
The dog's ancient past lives on in yet another form of canine communication: scent marking. In order to maintain a steady supply of prey, wolves establish territories of up to 100 square miles in the continental U.S. One of the ways they mark their turf is through the act of scent rolling.
White sage will stimulate the wolf's sensory organs. This sage will cause them to scent roll, scent mark. We have Kiana here, and she's doing that so that she can make sure that any other animal she comes into contact with knows where she has been.
And though the practice is hardly do or die for their canine descendants, dogs instinctively scent mark the same way wolves do.
If you take your dog to the park and there's a nice spot in the grass, you might see your dog roll all on its back and get really into that particular spot. Your dog is doing the exact same thing that Kiana here is doing now.
The similarities between wolves and dogs may be striking, but you're probably wondering how on earth we got from this to this. The process began thousands of years ago, when ancient man succeeded in domesticating the wolf.
The scientists are unsure of when the dogs first were domesticated, but they think maybe 14,000 years ago. And those dogs started out probably as camp scavengers, but eventually they became more useful to their tribe or their family group.
Once wolves became domesticated, their transformation into today's myriad species of dogs was simply a matter of experimentation and time.
A wolf turns into a dachshund through selectively breeding. You take the smallest wolf out of a litter, you breed it with another small wolf, and you just keep going and going and going, and then over thousands of years of selectively breeding, you get these tiny little dachshunds or chihuahuas.
As invaluable as wolves are to our understanding of dogs, opportunities to study them are diminishing. They face the very real threat of extinction, as man, for centuries, has systematically hunted them down.
As people came over from Europe, they brought along their fears of wolves, and when they spread out across the West, they started killing off wolves because they felt like their families were threatened and their livestock. With all that hunting going on, they became endangered.
Domestic dogs actually kill more people than wolves do in a given year. In the past 100 years, there's only been one documented case of a healthy wild wolf attacking and killing a human being.
Despite the misconceptions, the wolf endures as our most promising means of understanding modern-day dogs. Wolves represent a living link to the dog's ancient past, nature's first draft of man's best friend.
What's this? What's this right here? Good boy.
Well, the dog really is a descendant of the wolf. So when you're at home playing with your dog, relaxing on the couch with it, you have the wolf to thank.
There's a wild competition in Alaska that brings out the wolf in every dog. And you won't believe how many calories each dog scarfs down to prepare for it. In 1904, President Theodore Roosevelt hunted wolves in Oklahoma with Jack Abernathy, a local legend renowned for catching wolves with his bare hands. After seeing Abernathy in action, Roosevelt wanted to nab one himself, but the Secret Service talked him out of it. The amazing story of dogs will return on Modern Marvels. We now return to dogs on Modern Marvels. Nothing on Earth showcases the remarkable stamina and spirit of dogs, like the Iditarod. A grueling race across the frozen wilderness of Alaska, spanning more than 1,100 miles.
With something like the Iditarod, it's not about their pulling ability. They're not pulling that much weight. It's about endurance, it's about their ability to run at a constant speed, and it's about being able to work as a team.
The necessity for teamwork compels each dog in the race, called a musher, to tap deeply into its instinctive pack mentality. Each must be driven by the same compulsion that bonded wolves together as predatory teammates thousands of years ago. No one understands this better than Jeff King, who has led his dogs to victory in the Iditarod 4 times.
Are you ready? Are you ready? I have one attribute that stands above all the others when evaluating my sled dogs. I call it the big D. D stands for desire. They gotta wanna be there. They gotta want it really bad.
But the challenge facing Jeff's dogs, and all the other dogs who compete in the Iditarod, is formidable.
Well, the Iditarod Trail begins in Anchorage at sea level and finishes in Nome, Alaska, 1,100 miles away. But in between Anchorage and Nome is the Alaska Range, one of the most magnificent and largest mountain ranges in the world. It's the toughest thing I've ever done. You're not going to win without having trained some of the finest canine athletes in the world.
Jeff trains 75 Huskies year-round at his facility in Denali Park, Alaska. Huskies are renowned for their speed and endurance, making them ideal sled dogs.
And they're perfect for the job because they're smaller, less than 55 pounds. They've got very sturdy feet and they've got strong muscles for their size. And they also have this incredible drive to run.
Hey.
And it's kind of like a combination between an Olympic sprinter and an Ironman triathlete.
You're up, Joe.
Any young Husky aspiring to make Jeff's team has to take a spin on what he calls the puppy wheel.
It's built out of a car wheel hub in the center, and then everything else was custom built. We've got rubber tracking that the dogs run on. It's good for traction.
The puppy wheel not only supplies the young Huskies with a good workout, it allows Jeff to evaluate their potential as future championship mushers.
When they're here, we like to watch them run in this wheel. We can evaluate their gait to some degree, and we can evaluate their ability to work with one another.
Once they've been evaluated on the puppy wheel, Jeff's Huskies graduate to another training device, the carousel. The carousel accustoms the Huskies to their working environment in front of the sled, but also spurs on their ancient instinct to be leader of the pack.
They're very competitive, and especially when they have a dog in front of them, they like to try and go really fast.
To control the carousel's speed and condition the dogs to run at a uniform pace, Jeff and his crew use a heavy-duty air brake.
The air compressor, it's run off a tractor axle and air brake system, the same things that are going to be stopping huge semi-trucks that you see driving down the road are the same brakes that we use. If I just leave this pushed in, they will go fast, 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 and as I pull it out, then I slow them down.
Oh, good boy.
The workout that really gets Jeff's dogs into championship form is pulling this 500-pound ATV. But they have the muscle to haul a lot more.
Any one of these dogs could move 1,000 pounds by themselves down the length of the driveway.
Months ahead in the Iditarod, the Husky's thick winter coat will allow it to withstand sub-zero temperatures. But now, during the summer, the thick coat can cause overheating. Like all dogs, and unlike humans, Jeff's Huskies don't sweat when they get hot. They pant.
Dogs don't have very many sweat glands, and so what they do is they pant. And so the water that coats their tongue and their airways evaporates, and that's how they lose their heat.
Still, panting isn't as efficient a cooling system as perspiring, so dogs are more likely to overheat than humans. Jeff's answer is to continue the rigorous training in the cool waters of a nearby lake.
Good boys!
Cool or hot, Jeff's Huskies burn so much energy while training that their daily caloric intake increases 8 times above average. A typical Husky consumes 1,300 calories per day. After a day of training like this, Jeff's Huskies wolf down a whopping 10,000. That's 4 times the daily caloric intake of the average human. But an ample diet and flawless training don't assure success in the punishing Iditarod. On average, 52% of the dogs who start the race fail to make it to the finish. Jeff sees it as his mission never to let that happen.
Yes, you and I are buddies, huh? We won the Iditarod together, didn't we?
The heart of an ancient, indomitable wolf beats in every one of his dogs.
Good boy.
Victory hinges on his ability to help them rediscover it.
My job is to know how to inspire them and motivate them and recognize the talent within them. I think the best way to think of my sled dogs is a well-trained team of Navy SEALs. Every one of them is incredible individually, and as a group, they're near mythological.
Like the Huskies in the Iditarod, another class of canine that has never lost touch with its inner wolf is the herding dog. The precision with which herding dogs can control livestock is a modified, yet mesmerizing version of a wolf's predatory behavior. More than 60 kinds of herding dogs help manage the world's livestock, but the Border Collie is renowned as the master of the art.
Border Collies are great herding animals because of their intelligence and their enthusiasm, their energy, but also that they know the difference between cause and effect.
Border Collies perform a benign form of a wolf's hunting tactics, circling their prey and chasing it back to the pack. Through rigorous training and selective breeding, man has suppressed the herding dog's killer instinct while preserving the dog's hunting skills.
Come by.
Champion herding instructor Robin Elliott has been training dogs in the art for more than 20 years.
That's a girl.
The first test Robin administers her canine students is called the instinct test, conducted when the dog is about 6 months old.
Every puppy's going to be different. Some want to run in there and grab a sheep. Some want to go behind and control them. We're basically telling them what not to do, letting them think about what they can do and what is right to do. So your dog has to learn how to talk to the sheep gently.
Robin trains not only the dogs, but also their masters, tapping once again into the ancient pack mentality passed from wolves to dogs.
Justin.
The shepherd must assume the role of pack leader.
The first thing you have to understand is we're not here to train your dog to herd sheep. We're going to teach you to be a shepherd. I'm trying to create in a herding dog an independent thinking, problem-solving partner that's willing to take my directions.
What a good job you did.
Using a system of commands, an accomplished shepherd can direct his dog unerringly and steer his flock wherever he wants.
Wait means go right, lie down means stop. It doesn't mean lie down. She can lie down, she can sit, she can stand, it's her choice. Come by means go left, walk means walk to her stock, put pressure on them, and see, as she gets closer to them, she should feel the needs of the sheep and feel gently to walk up and be nice to those sheep and move them nicely.
When dog and shepherd are too far apart for voice commands, the communication goes nonverbal.
Means go right, means walk up, means slow down, means go left. So she's going to get in the eyes of those sheep, tell them to go where I'm telling her to take them.
The Border Collie uses the subtlest of tools to control the movements of the flock. Its eyes. One intimidating stare is all it takes. Other breeds use a different tactic.
A Sheltie, a Corgi, a Bouvier, Australian Shepherd. What they do is they use their body or a bark or movement by moving back and forth on what we call wearing to convince the stock to move forward.
Regardless of technique, herding dogs possess one trait treasured above all others, the same one we love about our own dogs.
What I look for in a good herding dog, number one, is heart. Those dogs want to do anything and everything they can to please you. You want to go to work, they're happy to go to work 24/7. No matter what, they will give you your heart.
Yes, that's lots of hard work. Thank you.
The same holds true for the dogs who take a bite out of crime. Bad guys are finding out the hard way how strong a dog's bite force really is. Do you know? The Iditarod commemorates the heroics of a Siberian husky named Balto. In 1925, during an outbreak of diphtheria in Alaska, Balto led his sled team on the final leg of a run to bring medicine from Anchorage to Nome. Dogs will return on Modern Marvels. We now return to dogs on Modern Marvels. With the right training, man's best friend can become a criminal's worst nightmare. An estimated 50,000 police dogs are on duty in cities across America, and they love their work. Just ask Brett Titus of the Denver PD, a canine handler for the department's SWAT team.
This is my partner, Stinger. He is a Belgian Malinois. He's been on the street with me for almost 7 years. He's found and caught a lot of bad guys.
Belgian Malinois and German Shepherds are the two most popular police dog breeds and possess many of the traits that have allowed their ancestor, the wolf, to endure for centuries. Both are muscular and fast, but the job qualifications go beyond physical prowess.
One of the things that we look for is combat drive. We can't instill that in the dog. It has to come just naturally, and it's the drive to want to go out and search for, say, a suspect and pick a fight. We ready?
But police dogs need more than just combat drive. They've got to be willing to put their own lives at risk and spare two-legged officers from performing potentially deadly duties.
One of the most dangerous things a tactical team has to do is search an attic. One of the best tools we have is a police canine. So what you're gonna see here is what we call an attic insertion. We're gonna load the dog onto a ballistic shield and lift the dog up to where he can jump into the attic and do a thorough search.
The combination of power, speed, and fighting spirit makes dogs like Stinger an intimidating force, even in training sessions. In order to train Stinger to take down bad guys with gusto, Brett dons this protective suit before every simulated attack. The suit protects Brett from Stinger's most powerful weapon, his bite.
As many years as I've been doing this, every time I put that suit on and I see one of these guys cooking about 30 miles an hour to put a strike on me, my heart still pounds.
Dogs have immense power in their jaws. When you look at the pounds per square inch of a human bite, it's about 120. But for dogs like German Shepherds, it's up around 230. And back by the molars, it's up over 400. So if they bite, it's really going to hurt.
A police dog's aggressive instincts and forceful bite are tempered by its training and its inborn desire to please its handler. Just as the herding dog submits itself willingly to the shepherd, the police dog accepts its handler as its pack leader.
Come on, Bolek. I'm giving him a command to focus on me so he can let them do their job and then he will do his. So by giving him that command, it keeps him close to me so we're not stumbling around. Now I'm gonna let him have his reward. Atta boy. Here. His reward base comes from what we call prey drive. Him wanting to chase things and bite. The other drive that I'm satiating is pack drive, and that stimulates him as well, knowing that he's making the pack leader happy.
As many dogs fight crime on the front lines, others have a nose for detective work. Bloodhounds have been following the scent trails of criminals and victims since the 18th century.
All the attributes that have been bred into it is forward tracking, the long ears, the loose skin, the slobber, the big feet. There's nowhere you can run that a bloodhound won't find you. Mud, water, snow, rain, any of it, they'll track their way through it.
Among all dog breeds, their sense of smell is the most keen. The old joke is that a bloodhound is a nose with a dog attached.
The bloodhound can track anything. And in fact, the evidence that they produce from tracking can be used legally in court.
How do bloodhounds do it? Part of the answer is plain to see. Its drooping ears, dragging the ground, collect odors and sweep them toward the nostrils, while its sagging facial skin traps scent particles. Inside the nose, the chemical vapors comprising the odors lodge in the mucus and bombard the bloodhound's 230 million scent receptors. Chemical signals then rush to the brain, where an odor image forms, an image much richer in detail than a photograph is to a human. As bloodhounds keep their noses to the grindstone for police departments, other dogs are sniffing out wrongdoers for the United States Border Patrol. They learn the ropes here at the Federal Canine Enforcement Training Center in Front Royal, Virginia. After 7 weeks of training, the dogs will be deployed at border stations and hotspots, helping to stop illegal border crossings and drug smuggling.
These canines are trained to detect concealed humans and the odors of marijuana, cocaine, methamphetamines, as well as heroin and other narcotics. We want dogs that work with the same enthusiasm the last 5 minutes of their 12-hour shift as they did the first 5 minutes of their 12-hour shift.
Every day in training, the dogs enthusiastically stick their noses into other people's business, in simulations designed to be as realistic as possible.
What we have now is a vehicle search scenario. Then he'll start with a first pass. If that reveals nothing, he'll go into what we call systematic search, presenting productive areas, seams, holes, and natural cracks. This scenario has a visible person in it as to demonstrate the ability of the dog to distinguish between a person he can see and a concealed person.
Displaying skills just as adept in real-life scenarios, the Border Patrol's 1,400 dogs have detected thousands of illegal border crossers and hundreds of millions of dollars in illicit drugs. But success has bred a new challenge. Smugglers have countered with tactics meant to throw the dogs off the scent.
What we have here is roughly 5 pounds or so of marijuana in a bag with coffee in it. Coffee is commonly used in the southwest border to cover up the smell of marijuana. The dog's going to ignore the coffee, but he's going to alert to the presence of the narcotics.
Another team of dogs might be your best chance of survival in the wake of a disaster. But before they can save our lives, we have to save theirs. In 2009, American drug dogs sniffed out 1,000 pounds of heroin, 26,000 pounds of cocaine, 670,000 pounds of marijuana, 3 million pills, and $34 million in undeclared cash. Dogs will return on Modern Marvels. We now return to dogs on Modern Marvels. Here at the National Disaster Search Dog Foundation in Ojai, California, cast-off canines are being recruited for one of the most critical jobs in the wake of a natural disaster or terrorist attack: finding victims buried alive in the rubble. Every year, millions of stray and abandoned dogs enter animal shelters. And since 1996, the National Disaster Search Dog Foundation, or SDF, has rescued hundreds of them, so that they can rescue us from potentially life-threatening situations. Take Hurricane Katrina, for example. In the wake of that disaster, 26 SDF dogs located hundreds of people trapped in flooded homes and abandoned buildings.
After Katrina, search and rescue dogs were responsible for finding many people. They would and could go places where the most fearless National Guardsman or FEMA officer wouldn't even dare to go.
Meet Spuds and Ben, 2 of 70 dogs assigned to the SDF.
Go!
Like the Bloodhound, Spuds, Ben, and the rest of the SDF team are living proof that when it comes to tracking down people,
search,
no technology trumps a dog's cold nose.
That ability to smell has allowed us to be able to find people that are buried in buildings up to 4 to 5 floors underneath a collapsed structure.
To become certified rescue dogs, Spuds and Ben will undergo more than 2 years of training, including 16 grueling days at this 3-acre wasteland of recycled concrete. But their training ground is more than just a pile of rubble. The location is designed to mimic a real disaster site.
This is the closest thing to a collapsed building we can find. Large scale, large rubble. We're able to bury ourselves and let the dogs go out and find us.
The Foundation's training method boils down to a simple game of hide and seek. Handlers condition each dog to form a powerful bond with a favorite toy. Only by finding the victim will the dog earn the privilege of playing with the toy.
Basically a 3-step process that all plays off on their sense of play. So we teach them to bark at that toy. Then we teach them to bark at the victim. And the last step is to hide the victim and then let the dog bark when he finds that victim and then reward him with that toy.
Put you in the hole and I'll bury you.
So let's put Spuds and Ben to the test. Will they be able to locate our simulated victim, completely concealed under the rubble? At an actual disaster site, the terrain traversed by Spuds and Ben would be a minefield of potential hazards, ranging from gas pockets to razor-sharp debris. The dangers dictate that the dogs almost always proceed alone. One misstep could be fatal. Agility and precision are paramount.
They're taught to climb ladders, uneven surfaces, teeter-totters. They're basically avoiding any type of rubble, piece of nail or glass or something. Every foot gets placed exactly where he wants it. That's due to the training that we do in the very beginning of their career.
So how are Spuds and Ben doing? Thanks to their rigorous training and the inborn tracking skills handed down to them by their ancestor, the wolf,
Get it, that's it, Spud, get him! That's it, that's it!
it takes Spuds and Ben less than 10 minutes to find and rescue both of the simulated victims.
Good job, buddy! Hey, come on, Spud, let's go. Here we go.
Thank you for coming and finding me. Oh, thank you, buddy.
Until recent decades, dogs like Spuds and Ben were rarely used. One disaster changed all that. The bombing of the Oklahoma City Federal Building. 168 people perished. As few as 15 qualified search dogs existed at the time. And only one dispatched to the site found a survivor. The founders of the SDF felt that a greater force of search dogs could have saved more lives. Today, some 220 government-certified search dogs like Spuds and Ben are at the ready. And they've been deployed to disaster sites all over the world. More than a quarter of these dogs have been trained by the SDF. Spuds and Ben exemplify the most important trait of any search dog: tenacity, to the point of obsession.
If I threw Spuds' favorite toy into a bush, he would still be there tonight if he couldn't find it.
And even though rescue dogs like Spuds and Ben mostly work solo, they're far from alone. In a deeper sense, their human pack leaders are always at their sides.
Urban search and rescue is a dangerous thing. We, as handlers, are advocates for our dogs. We are there to ensure that we go home and they go home.
Dogs have the unique capacity not only to save lives, but to salvage them. Coming up, these caregiving canines
You make me a better person, buddy.
make sure our country's finest get the hero's treatment they deserve. A German shepherd named Tracker found the last human survivor of the 9/11 terrorist attack, under 30 feet of the Twin Towers rubble. Tracker died in 2009, but scientists successfully produced 5 cloned puppies. Dogs will return on Modern Marvels. We now return to dogs on Modern Marvels. President Harry Truman once famously commented, "If you want a friend in Washington, get a dog."
I'm going to call the dog Buddy.
Nearly every chief executive has felt the same way. More than 50 canines have made the White House their home over the last 2 centuries.
Dogs have been a part of presidents' lives since the beginning. George Washington himself owned 10 American foxhounds. He actually invented the breed.
Calvin Coolidge had more than 10 dogs, including a collie named Boston Beans. LBJ's mutt Yuki liked to sing with him in the Oval Office. And George Bush's Springer Spaniel Millie wrote a book, ghosted by the First Lady, that outsold her master's biography. FDR's Scottish Terrier, Fala, had his own press secretary, and during the election of 1944, even helped win his master a 4th term in office, despite a controversial turn of events.
Republican critics accused FDR of spending millions of dollars going back to get Fala from the Aleutian Islands. They claimed that Fala had been left there. FDR realized the error, sent the Navy back.
The accusation was untrue, and with the help of Fala, President Roosevelt turned the tables on his opponents.
was giving a speech to the Teamsters, and he gave this overwhelmingly just rollicking speech about how you can talk about him, talk about his family, but leave little Fala out of this.
I think I have a right to resent, to object to libelous statements about my dog.
Some historians believe the Fala speech helped swing the 1944 election in FDR's favor. But that wasn't the only time a dog helped a politician win over voters. In 1952, Senator Richard Nixon faced accusations of illegal funding and went on the air to save his candidacy for vice president.
I come before you tonight as a candidate for the vice presidency and as a man whose honesty and integrity has been questioned.
The one thing that he did admit to receiving as a gift was his dog Checkers. And he said,
You know, the kids, like all kids, love the dog. And I just want to say this right now, that regardless of what they say about it, we're going to keep it.
It endeared him to the American public, and letters poured in about how Eisenhower should keep Nixon on the 52 presidential ticket.
Dogs have served America as more than just political allies and faithful companions to the president. When America has gone to war, so have its dogs.
Watch it.
During World War II, dogs carried messages across battle lines, alerted soldiers of hidden explosives, and sniffed out ambushes from up to 1,000 yards away, a skill that saved countless American lives in the Pacific Theater.
In the Pacific, the fighting was very close. It was hand-to-hand. There were jungles. It was often very dark. And dogs would be used to try to find and ascertain the location of the enemy. Units that used dogs actually suffered lower casualty rates because of their use.
Dogs proved so useful in World War II. They've served alongside American soldiers in every conflict since.
They've served in Korea, they served in Vietnam, they served in Afghanistan, and they continue to serve today.
Like their predecessors, modern war dogs serve as guards or search and rescue scouts. They've also proven to be the best means of finding improvised explosive devices, or IEDs.
Even with our modern technology, our laser-guided munitions, our modern implements of war, we still can't replace the special skills of a dog.
Come here. Okay, sit.
But American military dogs are also serving their country in a new way, helping afflicted veterans on the home front heal from psychological and physical trauma.
That's it. Good heal. Good boy.
It's called Paws for Purple Hearts.
Nice. Good boy.
The Paws for Purple Hearts program is based on a symbiotic relationship where one group of veterans with psychological injuries meet the needs of another group of veterans with physical needs.
Good. Wait.
Volunteer trainers like Iraqi war veteran Jason Baker prepare dogs to assist physically disabled veterans.
Josh, pull. Pull. That's it. That's it. Come on, pull.
In return, Jason, who suffers from post-traumatic stress disorder, receives some treatment as well.
Hey, Yaro, you ready to train? Huh? You ready? Come on. I came home and started having a hard time being in large crowds of people, just overall depression. Once I started working with these dogs and I found out that these dogs were actually being trained to help fellow veterans, it gave me a sense of purpose. It gave me something positive in my life to work towards, and a really good feeling.
Part of that good feeling.
That's it. Almost. Flip with your nose. Yes! Good boy. Very nice.
Comes from the fact that Jason is training the dogs to help his fellow soldiers with everyday life.
Okay, so one task that people take for granted that a veteran in a wheelchair might not be able to do is retrieve a set of car keys. Somebody in a wheelchair drops their keys. They can't bend over to pick them up, so they can ask the dog to pick them up. So I'll show you. Girl, look, go get it. That's it. That's it. Bring it here. That's it. Good girl. Come here. Lap. That's it. Oh, good girl. Thank you very much. Look, tug.
Jason also trains the dogs to complete more complex tasks, like opening the refrigerator.
That's it. Yes. Good boy. Josh, get the water. Bring it here.
And retrieving food or drinks.
Good boy. Thank you. Very nice.
Once a dog has completed his training, he's paired with a physically disabled vet.
Very good.
You ready?
Let's go.
U.S. Army veteran Bill Smith lost the use of his legs when his Jeep careened into a ravine during a training exercise. But Bill gained a new perspective on life when he was matched with Venuto.
All the physical things he does for me are wonderful. Good boy. Good job, Bubby. Yeah, he can take my socks off and get him. Tug. I drop my driver's license on the ground. He can pick up a driver's license. But what he's done for me emotionally is can't be bought, you know, it can't be measured. Good boy. Almost. Good boy.
What Bill sees in Venuto is what we see in all our dogs. Strength, intelligence, and loyalty almost beyond our comprehension. And whether they're saving lives or tracking down criminals, wrangling our livestock or rescuing us from danger, the bond between a dog and its master is one of unwavering love.
I have no idea why dogs and men have such a common bond and relate so well to one another. I don't know where it came from. All I know is it's there.
Dogs have made us better by being so giving and being willing to accept us for who we are. And in that process, they're helping us accept ourselves.
You make me a better person, buddy. You make me a better guy. You really do.
Ah, good girl.